Psychology is not psychology because there are lots of aspects in psychology. It's not just a medical thing. It's not just the educational psychology. There are so many branches inside of psychology that you can't just say psychology is a good thing which can help me also on the development in direction to higher consciousness, because there are just very few sorts of psychology which really can help. Most kinds of psychology just run even more in the dream. That means in what we believe is reality. But what actually it is said even since times of Hinduism, which is about more than 3,000 years ago, that this is an illusion. We just see it with our senses, with our ears, eyes, touch, whatever. And this is very limited, and even research in biology can show that some animals have other senses, like ultraviolet, and it is actually clear that we humans are just limited to our 5 senses and to our human mind, and still the whole research and everything around deals with that as if this is just the only perspective of the whole thing, and that's not good. So they just focus human consciousness. Most psychologists don't focus that there is maybe a thing which is called higher consciousness, which we can reach and which will show us, when we reach it, the objective view outside of the senses, beyond thinking. But to reach that, first we need some psychologies which really helps us. I will name that later. But most psychology branches just focus thinking, emotions, and all the outcomes which are basically in the medical branch diseases, or in the educational psychology, human behavior. And this is not just based on the outcomes of the participants, what they do. Even the researchers are just also limited to their minds and to their senses, and they just observe with their personal subjective view. And that's a big problem, because so most research, not just psychology, actually most research is not as objective as they believe it is. So a big problem is that they just focus the results and not the causes. In most cases, even the ego is the cause, but because they watch it with their ego, with their minds, when they have the results, then it is really entangling doing research. That's a big problem. So let's look at the problems of psychology on 3 examples. The first is the item intelligence. Intelligence is very limited, defined from psychology, from current psychology. From the official research, they just say intelligence is our knowledge. They measure it with scales which just focus the knowledge of the participant and how fast the person is in thinking. So they just limit intelligence on thinking. Maybe you know such intelligence tests. When you have taken part in such surveys, there are lots of surveys about personality and about intelligence on the internet and in other places also. And sometimes you can take part just for fun. Sometimes it is for an ordinary study. And when you have taken the same survey several times, you maybe see that you have answered the questions in different ways. But this is because our ego, or we answer them with thinking, and this is because our ego is thinking and is changing from time to time and is influenced by other emotions on another day. And when you do the same thing, then suddenly you have other results. But this is just one aspect. From the other aspect, from the other view, from the research, you will also see that the intelligence tests are just limited to thinking and how fast you can think. And then there are tests where you have to solve problems, or where you have to solve small tasks about mathematics or whatever, or sorting words. And then sometimes additionally, they take time, they stop the time, and you are under pressure. But this is just to measure your thinking and how fast you can think. And this is intelligence for them. But from another perspective, for example, from religions and so, intelligence also includes sympathy or other lovely characterizations which you can't produce with the mind, with thinking. And that's the problem here. In this issue, I go even deeper in another video. The second item, they focus, has also to do with intelligence. This is to gain knowledge. It's an educational psychological item which is focused in lots of studies to gain knowledge, and then they measure students or children or even adults how fast they can learn or how good they can learn, how good they can remind things. It's also just limited on thinking and on intelligence. But here another factor comes in, which I must criticize, and this is to just gain knowledge will never bring you the real wisdom. Already Plato said that just knowledge can also be used for bad things. You can learn to be a very good mechanic and how to use a screwdriver, but you also can use the screwdriver to break into a car or into houses and use it for bad things. So just to gain knowledge sounds first of all good, and we all recommend it to the children and to other people. Yeah, you must finish school, and that's so important. You must have the knowledge, but just gaining knowledge is not everything there is and is far away from wisdom. A whole video about that also you can find on this channel. The last item I want to talk about is concentration. Also a very related thing to thinking, or what they call intelligence, but also related to meditation, because then we concentrate not on thinking on words or something like that. We concentrate on our consciousness and the development of it. It's another kind, it's an inner concentration. And this is what we are all striving for. And this is what this channel is also about, to resolve problems with meditation and so on. And they also do research in psychology and in other sciences about concentration. And they all want to gain concentration or to increase concentration. Lots of people have problems with concentration in everyday life, some just in learning, but most of the people in meditation. And for all these things, they want to gain more concentration. And so there's lots of research on it, because also the researchers wanted to have more concentration for themselves, because they have to write and they have to read lots of things every day. So that's a very important aspect, but it's also just limited, first of all, in most cases on thinking. But nowadays, fortunately, there's also research on meditation, not just from the Dalai Lama's Institute. Also, there is research from other countries on meditation and on the concentration aspect related to meditation. But also in most studies about concentration, they not focus the highest target, and this is to reach this higher self. They just focus, we want the concentration, but actually the target, the true target, is to reach enlightenment. It's to reach the higher self. But concentration is just a by effect of that, as well as inner peace and all the other good effects we have as a by effect from meditation. But they forget the highest target. They just want the by effect outcomes. And that's the problem. And so they forget a very essential thing, which is already given since thousands of years. And they just focus we want just the concentration or just the inner peace or whatever. But the true and the highest concentration you have when you have reached the target, because just an enlightened has the highest concentration, because this is the only one who can absolutely deal with his or her emotions and thoughts when they arise. All other people, even the best meditators, when they are not yet enlightened, then also thoughts and emotions can disturb the work and can disturb the concentration. And you are just out of this when you are at the target, when you have overcome this ego which causes the problems. And there are just very few psychological branches, and this is first of all the depth psychology, which I also present again and again on this channel, which is actually established from Sigmund Freud. But the most important things come from Carl Jung, which also deals with the ego as well as Sigmund Freud, but also focuses the higher self and meditation. And things like wholeness, connectedness, and so on. And then there is another branch which is called transcendental. Some people say it's kind of pseudoscience. The problem is when it comes to things which people can't see and on which you can't give evidence that other people can grab it with their senses. And this is the case with consciousness. That's the problem. So research is very limited. There are some research methods like introspection and also observing from another person and so, but they are also, of course, limited, and you have to do it again and again to make the science in this direction bigger, to bring more results, to have more participants in that direction. Because when you just have very few people which work with introspection methods, then it is very limited. And already now it is still limited because just very few studies use the introspection method, but it more and more becomes famous. Introspection method, I shortly explain, is just the person, which is the participant, just focuses him or herself, just observes, for in the case of consciousness, just observes their own thoughts, their own emotions, and just describes it to another person, to the researcher. And the researcher writes it down for the research report. And that's all, actually. Normally, introspection was used as a therapy method from Sigmund Freud earlier, and still today, but also it is a research method, not just a therapy method. And besides psychology, you can also mention philosophy, but here is also still maybe a small challenge between the sciences. Some psychologists would say we are better, some philosophers would say we are better, but actually you can also name problems in philosophy. You can name good things, like Plato already mentioned it 2,500 years ago, the higher self, which exists besides the ego and which is overwhelmed from that all the time. And at exactly the same time, in the Eastern area of the world, Buddha said the same thing. A coincidence? We don't know. But philosophy is very rich in that. But there are also the same problems like in psychology. There are lots of philosophy branches which not focus the basic truth or the essential topics. And so you can't just say